Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're pushing aside all the speculation, the grainy photos, the online theories.
Yeah, forget the rumors for a bit.
We're going straight to the source. We're digging into hard documents, official records, stuff written by the military, by police, by government agencies over, 50, 60 years?
Exactly, and that's the crucial part. Everything we're talking about today comes from documents obtained painstakingly through the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA requests.
And this is mainly from the Black Vault Archive, right?
That's the one. John Greenwald Jr.'s massive project took him like 25 years of filing requests. So this isn't hearsay, it's not someone's interpretation. We're looking at actual Air Force reports, Navy debriefs, FBI files, even NASA transcripts.
Wow. So the government's own words, basically.
Their own words, their own letterhead, their own internal memos. We're reading the receipts they kept.
Okay, so these documents are legit. Signed, dated, official. Our goal here isn't really to convince anyone that UAPs exist.
No, the documents themselves kind of take care of that, They acknowledge tracking something.
Right. So our mission today is more about pattern recognition. Looking across all these cases from way back in the 40s right up to the 2000s.
Yeah, finding the common threads, the recurring details, especially those cases where you have really credible witnesses, pilots, police, military folks, seeing things that just don't fit any conventional docs.
And crucially, where the internal story the government was telling itself doesn't match the story they told the public. That gap is fascinating.
That gap is where the real story often lies. And what's striking when you lay these files out is the consistency. You see an Air Force memo from Texas in '57 describing, say, electromagnetic interference. Then you see a SAC commander's alert from Montana in '75 worried about the same thing over nuclear sites. Then FAA radar notes from Texas in 2008 showing craft doing impossible maneuvers. The descriptions, the capabilities they echo across decades.
It's like building a profile based purely on the bureaucratic paper trail.
That's exactly it. We've got 14 key case files here, spanning 1948 to 2008. We're going deep into the footnotes, the margins, the memos the public maybe wasn't supposed to see.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start? You mentioned electromagnetic effects. That sounds physical, tangible.
It's one of the most consistently documented physical interactions. We're calling it the electromagnetic signature. This is where these objects seem to actively interfere with technology. Kill engines, jam radios, mess with navigation, sometimes with critical defense systems.
Right, EMI, electromagnetic interference. But this sounds different from just, static on the radio.
Oh, way different. We're talking about immediate, localized, often total failure of electrical systems. Imagine a car driving along, perfectly fine 1 second and the next dead. Engine, lights, radio, everything, as if it's inside a powerful invisible field.
And the thinking is, the object itself generates this field.
That's the implication in the reports. Either it's generating a massive magnetic field as part of its structure or operation, or maybe its propulsion system itself works by manipulating electromagnetism in a way that just swamps our tech nearby. It's baffling, honestly.
This isn't new, it goes way back.
Almost right after World War II, you start seeing these reports pop up. But a really classic, well-documented cluster happened in 1957, Levelland, Texas.
Levelland, I know that name. That
Yeah.
wasn't just one person, was it? It was bigger than that.
Much bigger. That's what makes it so compelling and, frankly, kind of creepy. November 2nd, 1957. Over about a 2-hour window, late at night,
Okay.
the Hockley County Sheriff's Office gets flooded. 15 separate reports. Not just in Levelland, but across a 40-mile radius. Different people, different locations, all reporting basically the same terrifying sequence.
Okay, walk us through that sequence. What did people actually see and experience?
Let's take Pedro Salado. He's a farm worker, drives a pickup truck. He's out on this dark, lonely road. Probably pitch black out there.
Right.
Suddenly, he sees this light. It resolves into a huge object. He described it as torpedo-shaped, maybe egg-shaped, glowing, maybe 200 feet long, and completely silent, coming right at him, fast.
Silent is a word that keeps coming up.
Almost always. And then as this massive, silent thing gets close, his truck dies.
Just cuts out.
Totally. Engine dead. Headlights out. Plunged into darkness except for the light from this object nearby. His ignition system, low voltage, just stopped.
Simultaneously. The engine and lights together.
Exactly. That's what everyone reported. The failure coincided perfectly with the object's closest approach. So Salado, probably terrified, jumps out. He watches it hover there, pulsing this reddish light.
It's hovering.
For a moment. Then, still silent, it just shoots straight up. Gone. vanishes.
And the truck.
He gets back in, turns the key, vroom, starts right up, headlights work, no problem at all.
Like nothing ever happened. That's key, isn't it? The immediate recovery. It wasn't a mechanical failure in the usual sense.
Precisely. It wasn't like the engine seized or the battery died. It was like an external off switch was thrown and then thrown back on when the object left. Targeted, temporary interference.
And he wasn't alone. There were others.
Oh, yeah. Jim Wheeler saw an egg-shaped thing sitting on the highway. Same deal lights. Engine died. Jose Alvarez, Frank Williams, similar stories. Even the sheriff, Clem Rear, and his deputy saw a huge blue light that, quote, lit up the whole countryside.
Did their car stall?
Theirs didn't. It was an older model, maybe less susceptible, but their police radio went completely haywire, filled with static, just buzzing, unusable while the light was visible.
So even if the engine didn't die, the radio interference points to the same electromagnetic effect.
Exactly. It's another signature of a strong, localized EM field messing with electronics.
Okay, so you have this wave of credible reports, multiple witnesses, consistent details. What did the Air Force say? This is where the Black Vault documents become crucial, right? Comparing public versus internal stories. Bingo. Publicly. The Air Force, specifically Project Blue Book, jumped on it fast. Their explanation. Ball lightning, or maybe St. Elmo's fire, some kind of rare electrical storm phenomenon. Case closed, nothing to see here. Sounds plausible, right?
Yeah.
Weather stuff gets weird sometimes.
Plausible, maybe, if you don't have the internal files.
And we do. The Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the OSI, sent Lieutenant Robert J. Stevens to investigate on the ground. He talked to Salido, Wheeler, the sheriff, everyone.
And what did he find?
Crucially, he checked the weather records. Official meteorological data from the Lubbock Weather Bureau for that night, November 2nd, 1957.
That store.
His internal report, dated just days later, November 6th, is crystal clear. Quote, "No thunderstorms recorded, conditions clear and calm." He explicitly stated the thunderstorm hypothesis was, quote, "invalid." Within a 200-mile radius, clear skies, calm winds. No electrical storms, nothing.
So they knew. Internally, almost immediately, the public explanation was demonstrably false based on their own investigation. They knew. And it gets better. Stevens also oversaw checks on the vehicles that stalled.
Did they find anything wrong? Residual magnetism, fried wires?
Nothing. Zero. His report states no mechanical issues or residual magnetic effects. The trucks are fine. He concluded, and this is direct from the file, multiple persons of good reputation reported similar aerial phenomena producing consistent vehicle malfunction. No astronomical or meteorological source accounts for electrical failures. No hoax indicated.
He basically said, something real happened here, it affected vehicles electrically, and we don't know what it was.
Pretty much. The case was officially filed internally as unknown, and Leveland wasn't just forgotten. That specific incident, coded L57, pops up again years later.
How so?
It was specifically referenced in a 1966 Air Force technical memorandum, the subject, vehicle power system failures in association with aerial phenomena.
So they recognized this engine-killing effect as a real, recurring technical characteristic linked to these phenomena. They were studying it internally.
Absolutely. Leveland became a data point in a larger classified puzzle about how these things interact with our technology.
Okay, that's disturbing enough with civilian cars.
Yeah.
But you mentioned this same EMI signature showing up in much more sensitive locations.
Yeah. Fast forward to 1975. The Cold War is still very hot. And now, similar phenomena aren't just buzzing pickup trucks, they're showing up over U.S. Strategic Air Command nuclear bases.
SAC bases. We're talking about missile silos. Nuclear bomber bases.
Exactly. Weapons storage areas, WSAs, where nuclear bombs were kept. And Minuteman missile launch facilities, LFs, the silos. We're talking Loring Air Force Base in Maine, Malmstrom in Montana, Minnow in North Dakota. Multiple bases, same time frame, late October through mid-November 1975.
This sounds incredibly serious. What were they seeing?
Base security personnel, radar operators, multiple reports, luminous objects, often described as lights, sometimes reddish, orange, or white, low-flying, hovering silently, often directly over or very near the WSAs and LFs.
Hovering over nuclear missile silos? How do they react?
With extreme alarm, as you can imagine. At Loring, radar picked up a slow-moving target heading for the WSA. Security teams visually confirmed red and white lights just hovering there. A few nights later, different base, Malmstrom. Security guards see a glowing orange sphere, maybe molten looking, hanging about 500 feet above the ground, right near a missile launch site. Silent. Just sitting there in the Montana winter night.
Were they trying to intercept these things? Scramble jets.
They certainly tried to challenge them. But the object's behavior was non-conventional. The reports consistently mention intelligent control. These weren't just drifting lights. They seemed to be deliberately maneuvering, surveying the facilities.
How so?
Take the Minot logs from November 10th. Security reports a white circular light hovering about 500 feet directly over the Oscar 7 launch facility. Just hangs there for several minutes, then it moves off. When challenged or approached, the radar tracks confirmed these things could accelerate incredibly fast.
Faster than conventional aircraft.
Way faster. We're talking speeds exceeding 1,000 miles per hour, often achieved almost instantaneously from a dead hover. Straight up or accelerating away horizontally. Impossible for any helicopter or known aircraft, especially with no sonic boom reported.
This must have gone right to the top.
Immediately, General David C. Jones, the commander-in-chief of SAC at the time, issued an urgent directive. All sightings over SAC bases were to be reported immediately, like within minutes, directly to his command post and the Pentagon Air Staff. This wasn't routine, this was a high-priority security threat.
In the internal communications, the documents from NORAD and SAC.
The Black Vault got hold of some of those messages. They explicitly note the objects exhibited intelligent control and that their performance exceeds conventional aircraft. They knew they were dealing with something technologically superior and intelligently guided, operating over their most critical assets.
And the EMI. Did it show up here too? It wasn't just cars this time.
No, and this is maybe even more chilling. Remember Sheriff Weir's radio static in Levelland? At Minot Air Force Base, during that November 10th incident where the object hovered over the Oscar flight facility, the official log notes a temporary loss of UHF comms.
UHF. Ultra high frequency. That's secure military communication, right? Not like a simple car radio.
Exactly. We're talking about secure, relatively robust military communication channels between the Missile Launch Control Center and the base command post. And for about 5 minutes, coincident with the object being right there, the UHF comms went dead, just like Pedro Salito's headlights.
So the effect scaled up from a 1950s pickup truck ignition
to a 1970s secure military radio link at a nuclear missile base. Same principle, localized electromagnetic interference strong enough to disrupt electronics but impacting a much more sophisticated and critical system. It suggests a deliberate or inherent capability to interfere across a wide technological spectrum.
That consistency is unnerving.
Okay.
So we have documented cases of physical interference. What about catching these things, seeing them and tracking them simultaneously? Visuals, plus objective data.
That's the next level of evidence, and it really shuts down explanations like misidentification or hallucination. When trained observers see something, and sophisticated radar systems track an uncorrelated target doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, that's powerful.
It moves from anecdote to instrumented data.
Precisely. And radar doesn't get scared, it doesn't misinterpret weather balloons easily, especially primary radar just looking for solid objects. When visual and radar align on something extraordinary, you have to pay attention.
Let's talk about a more recent case where this happened. Stephenville, Texas, 2008. Modern technology, lots of witnesses.
Right, this one caused quite a stir. January 2008, multiple people, including highly credible ones, reported seeing something huge and silent in the night sky near Stephenville.
Credible like who?
Leroy Gayton, a local police officer. Steve Allen, a private pilot. These aren't folks easily fooled by Venus or swamp gas. Allen described a massive, silent array of lights, maybe rectangular, and estimated its size as, well, mile long.
A mile long. That's staggering.
It's a description that strains belief, but he was adamant. And he's a pilot, trained to judge distances and sizes in the air. They all emphasized the silence and the sheer scale.
What was the official response initially? Military aircraft in the area, maybe?
Initially, flat denial. The Air Force Public Affairs at the nearby Joint Reserve Base, Fort Worth, put out a statement saying, nope, no military aircraft were operating in that specific area that night, January 8th. Case closed, move along.
But that wasn't the end of it.
Not even close. Public interest was high, people kept talking, and crucially, FOIA requests started flying, particularly from John Greenwald and others. The pressure built.
And the Air Force changed their story.
It had to. They quickly revised their statement. Oh, actually, yes, there were F-16s training that night, but they were operating in the designated Brownwood Military Operations Area, the MOA, further south. Routine training, they said. Implied the witnesses just saw the F-16s.
Okay, F-16s were there. But did that explain what people like the pilot Steve Allen saw? Or what the radar showed?
That's where the Black Vault's FOIA work really paid off. They managed to pry loose about 2,000 pages of FAA radar data from the Fort Worth Air Route Traffic Control Center for that night.
2,000 pages. What did it show?
Okay, quick radar primer needed here. You've got secondary radar, which talks to transponders on planes. That gives you identity, altitude, speed, standard air traffic control.
Right.
But radar systems also have primary capability. That just detects reflected radio waves bouncing off any solid object, whether it has a transponder or not. It just shows up as a blip, a primary return. If it doesn't match a known transponder signal, it's called an uncorrelated primary return.
Basically a solid mystery object on the scope.
Exactly. And the Stephenville FAA radar data was full of them that night. Multiple uncorrelated primary returns. Solid targets moving through the airspace, not identifying themselves electronically.
Were they near the F-16s? Or doing what the F-16s were doing?
Some tracks might have been near the MOA, but critically, many were outside the designated military training zone. And their performance, off the charts. The radar clocked these primary targets doing everything from a slow crawl 49 knots, which is barely moving, consistent with a silent hover, up to 2,100 knots.
2,100 knots. That's over Mach 3.
Mach 3.2, yeah. And performing maneuvers, changing direction, accelerating and decelerating in ways that are simply aerodynamically impossible for any known aircraft, let alone silently. The trajectories didn't match the F-16 flight paths.
So the radar saw the F-16s, and it saw these other unidentified high-performance objects in the same airspace.
That's what the data showed. And it wasn't just the raw data. Internal FAA communications surfaced too. Glenn Schultz, a civilian radar expert who reviewed the data, confirmed targets without transponder codes showing flight characteristics not associated with any known aircraft.
But the smoking gun was an internal note from an FAA supervisor.
Yes. An FAA traffic supervisor, looking at the logs from that night, wrote an internal memo that basically said, the primary returns match no transponder-equipped traffic. Targets appear to move in coordinated fashion through restricted airspace.
Coordinated fashion, that's huge. That implies
Intelligence, formation flying, purposeful movement, not random debris, not weather clutter, not system errors. The FAA's own internal assessment acknowledged tracking multiple, solid, unidentified objects exhibiting intelligent control and performance beyond known capabilities, right alongside their F-16s.
and yet the public explanation was just F-16s.
See the pattern. Internal data confirms anomaly, public statement simplifies or denies. The radar system worked perfectly. It tracked real objects. It was the objects themselves that were the mystery.
Let's jump across the globe and back in time a bit. New Zealand, 1978, the Kaikoura sightings. This one seems to have everything: pilots, radar, and even film footage.
It's often cited as one of the best documented cases ever because of that multimodal evidence. You have credible witnesses, multiple radar confirmations, and physical film evidence analyzed by scientists.
Who were the witnesses?
The crew of an Argosy freight plane flying along the coast of New Zealand's South Island. Pilot Vern Powell, First Officer Ian Perry. And crucially, they had an Australian TV news crew on board with a 16mm film camera.
What did they see?
Bright maneuvering lights described as orbs or spheres. They weren't just distant points. They paced the aircraft, sometimes close, sometimes further away, over a period of minutes. Powell gave this amazing description of one object as looking like a house burning in the sky, huge and completely silent.
A house burning in the sky. That's vivid. And they filmed this.
They did. The TV crew got footage of these bright lights moving against the night sky, seemingly interacting with the aircraft.
Okay, visuals and film. What about radar?
Wellington Air Traffic Control Radar confirmed it. While the plane was reporting the sightings, the radar operators were tracking multiple uncorrelated primary returns. At one point, they had 5 distinct unknown targets moving parallel to the Argosy's flight path, matching the timing of the visual reports perfectly.
So again, radar corroborates the pilot and crew's visual sightings in real time. Solid objects being tracked.
Exactly. But the analysis went further because of the film.
Who looked at the film?
It was taken very seriously. Optical engineers from New Zealand's DSIR, their main scientific research agency, analyzed it. Later, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, a physicist working for the U.S. Navy, known for his expertise in optical data analysis, also studied the footage frame by frame.
What were they looking for? Trying to debunk it as reflections or something.
They were looking for any conventional explanation. Lens flares, reflections off the cockpit window, meteors, satellites, known aircraft. But their conclusions were striking.
What did they find?
They determined the objects on film displayed structured motion, meaning the movements weren't random, weren't due to camera shake. The light sources appeared to be solid, under control, capable of sharp turns and accelerations inconsistent with known phenomena. The analysis of light intensity and shadow also suggested they were distant, self-luminous objects, not reflections.
So the scientific analysis backed up the idea that these were real anomalous objects being filmed.
Correct. They ruled out all the mundane explanations. The evidence was so strong that the Royal New Zealand Air Force, the RNZAF, couldn't dismiss it. Their official preliminary report classified the sightings as unidentified aerial phenomena.
That's significant. An official military conclusion of unidentified.
And they took it a step further. In a move that's pretty rare, they sent copies of their report and findings to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs.
To the UN. Why?
It was a form of diplomatic acknowledgement, basically saying, we investigated this thoroughly, we used radar and expert analysis, and we have confirmed sightings of phenomena we cannot identify or explain conventionally. We're letting the international community know. It elevated the case beyond just a local curiosity.
It's one thing for documents to acknowledge this stuff internally, but taking it to the UN, that's a different level of seriousness.
It really underscores how compelling the combined evidence, pilot, radar, film, scientific analysis was in that case.
Let's come back to the US and touch on a case that highlights the human cost of reporting these things, especially when the official story clashes hard with witness accounts. Portage County, Ohio, 1966.
Ah, yes. This one's a classic police chase case, but it's also a cautionary tale about what can happen when you stick to your guns against the official explanation.
Tell us about the chase. Who was involved?
It started with Deputy Sheriff Dale Spar and his partner, Wilbur Barney Neff. Early morning hours, April 17th, 1966, they spot this huge glowing object described as metallic, sort of oval or football-shaped, hovering low near Ravenna, Ohio.
Hovering.
Initially. Then it starts moving, and they decide to pursue it.
A police chase involving a UAP.
Exactly. And it wasn't short. They chased this thing for 85 miles across county lines into Pennsylvania. Other police officers from different jurisdictions got involved along the way, confirming the object's presence.
85 miles. That's not a momentary sighting. They had a long look at it.
A very long look. Spar later said it seemed like the object was aware of them, almost toying with them. It would speed up, get way ahead, then seem to slow down and wait for their patrol car to catch up, all while maintaining this bright glow.
Any physical effects noted, like the EMI we discussed?
Yes. Throughout the chase, Spar and Neff reported significant radio interference. Static, difficulty communicating with dispatch and other officers. Just like Leveland, just like Minot, that same disruptive electromagnetic signature seems to be present.
How did the chase end?
Near Conway, Pennsylvania. After leading them on this 85-mile trek, the object reportedly just stopped, hovered briefly, then ascended vertically at incredible speed, vanished straight up. Gone.
Okay, multiple police officers, long duration chase, radio interference, corroborated across jurisdictions, ends with impossible vertical acceleration. Seems pretty clear cut. What did Project Blue Book say?
This is where it gets infuriating, especially for the officers involved. Blue Book investigated, took their statements, and then officially classified the sighting as solved?
Solved.
Their explanation. The officers initially chased the planet Venus, possibly combined with misidentified stars or maybe an echo satellite.
Venus for 85 miles across state lines, causing radio interference and accelerating vertically.
It sounds absurd, doesn't it? You have multiple trained law enforcement officers involved in a multi-jurisdictional pursuit, reporting consistent details about a structured craft exhibiting intelligent control and physical effects. And the official explanation boils down to planets and satellites.
They basically dismissed the officer's testimony entirely.
Completely disregarded it in the final public conclusion, and this had a devastating impact, particularly on Deputy Spar.
You mentioned a human cost. What happened to him?
Dale Spar's life was, by many accounts, ruined by this. He faced intense public ridicule. He was mocked in the press. There was immense pressure, both officially and socially, to change his story, to admit he was mistaken, to align with the Venus explanation.
But he didn't.
He stuck to what he saw, what he experienced. But for a police officer, whose credibility is everything, being effectively labeled incompetent or a liar by the Air Force and parts of the media was crushing. It reportedly led to job loss, personal stress, family problems. It highlights the immense institutional pressure exerted to maintain the official narrative, even when it flew in the face of credible, corroborated eyewitness accounts and physical evidence, like the radio interference.
It's a stark reminder that behind these dry reports are real people whose lives were sometimes turned upside down just for reporting what they saw.
Absolutely. The documents tell one story, the factual encounter. The aftermath tells another, the pressure to conform.
This pressure, this pattern of denial, even when the evidence is strong. It makes you wonder about the cases where the evidence wasn't just electromagnetic or visual, but physical, where these things reportedly hit the ground or the water. Let's move into that territory. Physical trace and object recovery.
Right. This is arguably the most controversial and, if true, the most profound category. Incidents suggesting not just observation, but physical interaction, impact, and even retrieval.
Where do we start? Maybe with a case involving water impact. Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, 1967.
Shag Harbor is fascinating because it triggered an immediate official search and rescue operation. This wasn't vague lights, this was something seen crashing into the water.
Who saw it?
Multiple independent groups of witnesses on the night of October 4th, 1967. Teenagers out for a drive, local fishermen, RCMP officers. They all described seeing a string of lights, maybe 4 or 5 bright orange lights in a row, descending rapidly towards the water of the harbor.
Descending or crashing?
They reported seeing it strike the water, a definite impact. Then the lights went out.
So naturally, everyone assumes an aircraft accident.
Exactly. Plane crash. That's the immediate thought. The RCMP are called, the Coast Guard is notified, and a full search and rescue operation is launched by the Canadian authorities involving boats and eventually Navy divers. They coded it SAR Operation 67 8 City D 00004.
What did the search find? Wreckage, debris, oil slick?
That's the weird part. Nothing. Absolutely no sign of any aircraft wreckage. No bodies, no seats, no metal fragments. The water there isn't incredibly deep. If a plane went down, they expected to find something.
But they did find something unusual, didn't they? The foam.
Yes. Covering a significant area near the impact point, maybe 80 feet across, was this patch of dense, thick, yellowish foam. Witnesses said it had a strange consistency, almost like shaving cream but thicker, and carried a faint smell of sulfur. It eventually dissipated. Navy divers from HMCS Granby searched the bottom, found nothing.
So the official conclusion was, what? No plane crash?
The official reports essentially state, no evidence of aircraft accident. Object observed by numerous independent witnesses. Source and nature remain unknown. Acknowledge the sightings, acknowledge the impact report, acknowledge the lack of conventional explanation.
But there's a twist, right?
Yeah.
Something hinted at in later declassified documents about what happened after the surface search.
That's the really intriguing, almost spooky part. Years later, internal Canadian military correspondence surfaced, thanks again to researchers digging. These documents suggested that while the surface search found nothing, something else was going on underwater.
What?
The suggestion is that sonar operators aboard the HMCS Granby, the Navy ship involved in the search, actually detected an unidentified underwater target.
After the supposed crash?
Yes, moving slowly along the seabed. And here's the kicker. It was exhibiting non-acoustic propulsion characteristics, meaning it wasn't making the kind of noise a conventional submarine would make, silent underwater movement.
And where was it heading?
Reportedly, it was tracked moving towards the highly sensitive, highly classified U.S.-Canadian SOSUS station located nearby at Shelburne, Nova Scotia.
SOSUS, the underwater microphone network built to track Soviet subs.
The very same. So you have this narrative, objects seen crashing, no wreckage found, strange foam, and then potentially an unknown silent underwater object tracked moving away from the crash site towards a top-secret Cold War listening post.
That raises a lot of questions. Did it crash? Or did it submerge deliberately? Was it damaged? Was it observing the SOSUS array?
The official documents don't explicitly say UFO tracked by sonar. They refer to unknown sonar anomalies. But the sequence documented visual impact, strange residue, subsequent monoacoustic sonar track near the impact zone moving towards a sensitive site is incredibly suggestive. Commander C.W. Cogwell's final memo just leaves it hanging. Source and nature remain unknown.
Chilling. Okay, from a water impact to a ground impact, or at least a landing and recovery. Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, 1965. This one is legendary and deeply contested.
Kecksburg is a cornerstone case for alleged crash retrieval scenarios. December 9th, 1965. It starts with a massive, brilliant fireball seen across multiple states, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and even into Canada. People assumed meteor.
But something reportedly came down in the woods near Kecksburg.
That's what witnesses on the ground claimed. People converged on the area, including a local reporter, John Murphy, and volunteer firefighters like James Romansky. They reported finding an object in a wooded ravine.
What did they say it looked like? Not a meteor fragment.
Definitely not. Their descriptions are remarkably consistent. A large metallic object, maybe 10, 12 feet long, shaped like a giant acorn or maybe a bell. Bronze or copper colored. And crucially, Romansky and others noted it appeared seamless. No rivets, no weld marks, like it was cast or grown, not built.
Any other details? Markings.
Yes, Romansky specifically mentioned seeing strange symbols near the base of the object, describing them as looking like Egyptian hieroglyphs, but unfamiliar. Geometric symbols etched or molded into the surface.
And then the military showed up.
Very quickly, witnesses reported unmarked military trucks arriving. Personnel who identified themselves as Air Force, though some wore plain clothes. They secured the area, ordered civilians out, cordoned off the woods.
This sounds like a textbook containment operation.
It does. Police were told to keep people away. And several witnesses reported seeing the military load a large object covered by a tarp, but roughly matching the size and acorn shape described, onto a flatbed truck under heavy guard in the early morning hours. Then they left.
So, witness accounts point to an unconventional object found and a swift military recovery. What did the documents say? Did the military admit finding anything?
Publicly, absolutely not. The official Air Force explanation via Project Blue Book was simple. It was a meteor procession. Nothing was recovered. Case closed.
But again, the internal story.
Contradictory. FOIA searches eventually uncovered internal military teletype messages from that time. One, for instance, reportedly sent to Air Defense Command, stated something like, "Unidentified metallic object recovered near Latrobe, Pennsylvania, close to Kecksburg, to be transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for technical analysis."
Wait, an internal message confirms recovery and transport to Wright-Patterson for analysis. The very place where advanced tech and foreign aircraft were studied.
That's what the declassified teletype strongly suggests. So internally, they acknowledged recovering something non-meteoritic and sending it for expert study. Publicly, they denied anything was found except possible meteor debris.
Then the trail ends there, at Wright-Patterson.
The physical trail seems to. But the paper trail gets even weirder. Decades later, in response to more FOIA requests and even a lawsuit demanding records about Kecksburg, NASA got involved. They admitted that some relevant files, potentially related to analyzing debris from the event, had been transferred years ago to the National Archives.
Okay, so the files exist, they're just archived.
Well, NASA then reported back that those specific boxes of records filed under Aerospace Records Group 255 were missing.
Missing from the National Archives.
Reported as missing or lost sometime around 2003-2005. Conveniently, the very files that might have detailed the analysis of whatever the military recovered from Kecksburg seem to have vanished from the official government repository.
So witness testimony, swift military action, internal comms confirming recovery and transport for analysis, and then the subsequent analysis files go missing. That paints a picture.
It paints a picture of something significant being recovered, studied, and then the documentation related to that study being either lost or deliberately removed from the record. It's a bureaucratic black hole surrounding a physical event.
Let's look at another case involving physical traces, but this time, maybe closer encounters. 14 de las Flores Landing, Mexico, 1977. This involves reported occupants.
Right. This case shifts from just finding an object to observing activity associated with it and still leaving physical evidence behind, documented by Mexican railway authorities and police.
Who saw what?
3 railway workers out near the tracks in a remote area called Bordo Poniente near Mexico City, August 1977. They see a classic metallic disc, maybe 10-15 feet across, hovering silently just a couple of meters off the ground, right near the railway line.
Just hovering there.
Imagine the scene. Desert scrub, railway line stretching into the distance, dead quiet, and this polished metal disc just hanging in the air. Surreal.
Did anything happen?
Oh, yes. They watched as a ramp extended silently from the bottom of the disc to the ground, and then 2 figures came out.
Figures.
Well,
What do they look like?
the workers described them as humanoid, but small, maybe 5 feet tall, wearing some kind of tight-fitting suits. Their movements were described as somewhat stiff or robotic, and they were carrying instruments, thin rods with devices on the end.
What were they doing?
This is the really strange part. They began systematically collecting samples, prodding the ground, gathering bits of vegetation, examining rocks, using these rod-like devices, methodical, almost like field biologists or geologists taking samples. Clinical, detached.
Collecting samples. That's bizarrely specific.
It is. It suggests a purpose beyond just observation. And the encounter ended abruptly.
How?
One of the railway workers, startled, accidentally snapped a twig, made a small noise. Instantly, the figures stopped what they were doing. The light on the craft flared brightly, and the workers felt this intense vibration, more than a sound. They described it as a loud, low-frequency hum that they felt deep in their chests. Painful, unnerving. As soon as that happened, the figures quickly retreated back up the ramp, it retracted, and the disc shot straight up into the sky and disappeared. Silent again, except for that initial hum on departure.
Wow. Okay, incredible story. But you said physical evidence.
Yes, the workers immediately reported it to their supervisors and the police. When investigators arrived at the location described, they found physical traces right where the workers said the disc had hovered.
What kind of traces?
3 distinct, equally spaced indentations pressed into the hard earth, forming a perfect triangle, consistent with landing gear or support pads. And the vegetation within that triangle and nearby was visibly scorched, brittle, and desiccated, as if exposed to intense heat.
So, landing marks and heat effects.
Exactly. Police documented it, took photographs, and later follow-up visits by researchers reportedly confirmed residual heat signatures in the ground using thermal imaging and slightly elevated background radiation levels in the immediate vicinity compared to surrounding areas.
Landing traces, heat effects, radiation traces, consistent with the workers' account of the bright light flare and the hum on departure. Even with reported occupants, the physical evidence grounds the story.
It anchors the extraordinary witness testimony in measurable physical effects left at the scene. The scorch marks, the indentations, they corroborate the close proximity of a powerful, heat-emitting object.
We've covered a lot of ground EMI, radar tracking, alleged recoveries, physical traces. Let's shift to cases that stand out because of the sheer quality of the evidence itself, particularly photographic evidence analyzed by experts, or testimony from the most credible witnesses imaginable, like astronauts.
Right, these are the benchmark cases, the ones where debunkers have the hardest time because the evidence was subjected to rigorous, often governmental scrutiny and still came back unidentified.
Let's start with probably the most iconic UFO photos ever taken. McMinnville, Oregon, 1950. The Trent photos.
Absolutely classic. 2 black and white photos taken by a farmer, Paul Trent, on his property near McMinnville in May 1950. They show a clear, metallic, saucer-shaped object against the sky.
These photos have been debated for decades. Why do they still hold up as potentially authentic in serious analyses?
2 main reasons. First, the source. Paul and Evelyn Trent were simple, quiet farmers. They didn't seek fame or money. In fact, they were reluctant witnesses. They had no technical expertise or apparent motive to hoax sophisticated photos like this back in 1950.
Okay, credible, low-motivation witnesses. What about the photos themselves? Haven't people claimed they're fakes, like hubcaps thrown in the air or models on a string?
Those claims have been made, but they fall apart under serious technical scrutiny. The negatives were examined repeatedly over the years by the Air Force's Project Blue Book investigators, by the Naval Photographic Interpretation Center, NPIC, and later by independent scientific panels and physicists like Dr. William K. Hartman for the Condon Committee study and Dr. Bruce Maccabee.
What do these expert analyses find? What rules out a simple hoax?
They performed detailed photogrammetric analysis, looking at things like light and shadow on the object's apparent size versus distance markers in the photo, like telephone wires, the grain structure of the film, the consistency between the 2 photos taken moments apart.
And the verdict.
The analyses consistently concluded the object was not a small close-up model. The lighting and shadows on the underside of the disc were perfectly consistent with the ambient sunlight conditions recorded at that time of day, meaning it was illuminated by the sun from above like a large object some distance away. Estimates placed it between half a mile and a mile distant.
So the physics of the light and shadow proved it wasn't a small toy hanging nearby.
Exactly. Hartman, for the Condon report, concluded it was one of the few UFO photo cases where the evidence appeared consistent with the claim that an extraordinary flying object, silvery, metallic, disc-shaped, tens of meters in diameter, and evidently artificial, flew within sight of 2 witnesses. Maccabee's later, even more detailed analysis confirmed this, ruling out models or suspension. The case remains officially listed in the Department of Defense's photo analysis archives as containing unidentified photographic evidence.
Decades of scrutiny, and the best analyses say it looks like a real, distant, artificial object. That's pretty compelling.
It's why McMinnville refuses to go away. The data supports its strangeness.
Let's jump to another major photographic case, this time with military involvement from the start. Ilha de Trindade, Brazil, 1958.
This one is significant because of the witnessing circumstances and the immediate chain of custody for the negatives. The photos were taken in January 1958 aboard a Brazilian Navy survey ship, the Almirante Saldanha, which was conducting research near the small island of Trindade in the South Atlantic.
Navy ship, lots of potential witnesses.
Dozens. The object described as looking like Saturn, A disc with a ring around it was reportedly seen by numerous naval officers and sailors on deck. The photographer was a civilian professional, Almiro Barauna, who happened to be on board assisting with underwater photography for the mission. He managed to take 4 photos of the object as it flew past the island.
Okay, so multiple military witnesses corroborate the photographer seeing something. What makes the photos themselves so strong?
The handling of the film. Immediately after taking the shots, Barauna was escorted to the ship's darkroom. He developed the negatives right there, under the direct supervision of naval officers.
So zero opportunity for him to tamper with the negatives later. The chain of custody was unbroken and witnessed by the Navy.
Precisely. That eliminates most claims of later hoaxing or darkroom trickery. The Brazilian Navy took this very seriously. The negatives and prints were then officially analyzed.
By whom?
By Brazil's Ministry of the Navy, their National Photographic Service, and even their Aeronautical Intelligence Service. They conducted their own detailed analyses.
And their conclusion?
They all publicly confirmed the photographs were authentic. They found no evidence of montage, double exposure, or retouching. They concluded the object depicted was real, airborne, and crucially, quote, not attributed to any conventional aerial device. The Brazilian government itself authenticated the photos and admitted they showed an unknown object.
Did U.S. intelligence weigh in on this? It happened during the Cold War? An unknown object near a naval vessel?
They were certainly aware. Declassified documents show the U.S. naval attaché in Brazil investigated. They confirmed Barauna's reliability, the Navy's procedures, and the official Brazilian conclusion. CIA documents also mention the case, acknowledging the photos appeared genuine and the Brazilian Navy's authentication seemed solid. It remains one of the best attested photographic cases globally, backed by a sovereign government's own investigation.
Authenticated by a foreign navy, witnessed by dozens, immediate chain of custody. Hard to dismiss. Now let's go from the South Atlantic to Earth orbit. Astronaut sightings. Gemini 11, 1966.
You really can't get more credible witnesses than NASA astronauts, especially highly decorated ones like Pete Conrad and Richard F. Gordon Jr. These guys were test pilots, engineers, trained observers operating at the absolute cutting edge of technology.
What did they see up there? They were setting altitude records, right?
They were. September 1966, orbiting at a then record altitude of about 850 miles. During one pass, they observed a bright object moving near their Gemini capsule. Conrad described it as metallic and tumbling, definitely structured, not just a point of light.
Could it have been debris? Or maybe the Agena target vehicle they had practiced docking with earlier?
They considered that, but they confirmed the Agena was hundreds of miles away at that point, based on tracking data, and they were adamant this looked different. Conrad managed to snap 2 still photographs of it through the window, and Gordon shot some 16mm movie footage as well.
Photos from orbit by astronauts. Did Mission Control have any idea what it was? What about NORAD, tracking everything up there?
That's the critical corroboration. NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, checked their catalogs of all known objects in orbit. Satellites, spent rocket stages, debris. Their report back to NASA, documented in the mission files. No cataloged objects near Gemini 11's position at the time of the sighting.
So NORAD confirms. Nothing known was nearby. It wasn't space junk they could identify.
Correct. NASA initially speculated it might be ice particles or maybe undiscovered debris, but their own post-flight photographic analysis complicated that.
What did the photo analysis show?
They analyzed the stills and film. Internal NASA memos, later declassified and highlighted by the Black Vault, noted the object appeared too large and steady to be an ice particle, seemed self-luminous, not purely reflective, and had a definite spherical or capsule shape. It also exhibited apparent controlled rotation, not just random tumbling.
Controlled rotation? That sounds like more than just drifting junk.
It implies something manufactured, possibly stabilized. The final official assessment wasn't definitive, but it leaned away from simple debris. The 1968 classified mission summary, which eventually became public, listed the sighting as Case 311, spherical object photographed during orbital pass. Evaluation, unidentified orbital body.
Unidentified orbital body.
Documented by astronauts, photographed, confirmed by NORAD to be unknown, and analyzed by NASA as potentially structured and self-luminous. That's about as official as an unknown gets.
It's a top-tier case precisely because of the witness credibility, the multiple data points, visual, photo, radar tracking confirmation of absence of known objects, and the final, documented inability of the relevant agencies to identify it conventionally.
Okay, we've hit some major benchmarks: EMI, radar visuals, physical traces, authenticated photos, astronaut testimony. Let's round this out by touching on a few more key cases from the Black Vault file that really emphasize the historical depth, the global scope, and sometimes the sheer strangeness of what's in these records. Absolutely. We need to mention the one that arguably started it all for official U.S. investigation. The Chalez-Whitted sighting in 1948.
This was airline pilots, right? Very early on.
Yes, July 24th, 1948. Eastern Airlines DC-3 flight near Montgomery, Alabama. Captain Clarence S. Childs and co-pilot John B. Whitted, both experienced former military pilots from WWII. They reported a terrifying near miss.
With what?
An enormous, wingless, cigar-shaped aircraft. They estimated it at maybe 100 feet long. It shot past their plane at incredible speed. Their description was detailed. It had 2 rows of illuminated rectangular windows, like a passenger cabin, but glowing intensely, and it trailed a powerful, pulsing orange-red exhaust or flame from the rear. One passenger also caught a glimpse of it flashing by.
Wingless, cigar-shaped windows, powerful exhaust. That doesn't sound like anything conventional in 1948.
Not even close. And Childs and Whitted were considered extremely reliable observers. Their report, along with a few other similar high-quality sightings around that time, deeply concerned the Air Force's early investigators at Project Sign, based at Wright-Patterson.
This led to that controversial internal assessment.
Exactly. Based heavily on cases like Childs-Whitted, Project Sign drafted a top-secret document later known as the Estimate of the Situation in late 1948. We don't have the full document. It was allegedly ordered destroyed, but accounts from personnel involved state its tentative conclusion was shocking for the time.
Which was?
That the evidence pointed towards these objects being potentially interplanetary in origin, that the technology observed was beyond known terrestrial capabilities.
Wow. So the first official U.S. investigation group seriously considered the extraterrestrial hypothesis based on pilot reports like this one.
They did. But that conclusion was quickly shot down from higher up. Air Force Chief of Staff General Hoyt Vandenberg reportedly rejected the estimate, demanding more concrete physical proof, and ordered all copies destroyed. Project Sign was soon replaced by Project Grudge, which took a much more skeptical, debunking stance. But the Childs-Whitted case remains pivotal because it shows how seriously the phenomenon was initially taken at high levels, based purely on credible witness testimony of extraordinary technology.
It sets the stage for the decades of official ambivalence and denial that followed. Let's jump continents and political systems. What about behind the Iron Curtain during the Cold War? Did they see things too?
Oh, absolutely. The phenomenon didn't care about political boundaries. A great example is the Timisoara orb case from Romania. Likely sometime in the 1970s, exact dates are murky due to the secrecy of the regime.
Timisoara, Romania. What happened there?
You had a glowing orb, a bright sphere of light tracked simultaneously by multiple radar systems, not just civilian air traffic control, but also Romanian military radar installations. 3 different radar sites painting the same unknown target.
Multiple radar tracks. Any visual confirmation?
Yes. The pilot of an inbound Terram Airlines flight visually confirms seeing the bright, unidentified orb maneuvering in the sky, corroborating the radar picture.
Okay, radar and pilot visual. Did it do anything unusual, besides just being there?
It exhibited the same kind of performance seen in Western cases. High speed, abrupt maneuvers, vertical ascent capability that baffled the military radar operators. It moved in ways no Soviet or Western jet known at the time could replicate.
And did it interact with anyone on the ground?
It did. The object's presence reportedly triggered a police chase on the ground as officers tried to follow its movement. And guess what happened to the police radios during the pursuit?
Let me guess. EMI. Static. Failure.
Bingo! Strong, localized radio interference that disabled their communications while they were near the object. It's the Levelland signature, the Portage County signature, the Minot signature showing up again, this time in Ceausescu's Romania.
That consistency across geopolitical divides is remarkable. How was it handled officially there?
Under Ceausescu's regime, anything unexplained, especially something that demonstrated superior technology the state couldn't control or explain, was politically dangerous. It undermined the image of total state knowledge and control. So the official reports, the detailed radar logs, the pilot debrief, the police reports were quickly classified, suppressed, buried within the state security apparatus.
But the records survive somewhere.
Apparently so, eventually emerging after the fall of the regime. It shows that even in a closed authoritarian state, the objective reality of the phenomenon was being documented by their own systems, even as it was being politically denied. The physics didn't care about the politics.
Okay, from state secrets too. high strangeness. There's a case in the files that seems to blur the lines between UAP sightings and something else entirely, right? The Tolman House case in Wisconsin, 1987.
Yeah, this one is deeply weird. It's filed under UAP reports because of aerial sightings in the area, but the core events sound more like a Hollywood horror movie. It involves extreme, documented poltergeist activity.
Poltergeist activity, like ghosts and moving furniture, linked to UFOs.
It's a documented link, however bizarre. The Tolman family, living in Horicon, Wisconsin, began experiencing intense phenomena in their home. We're talking unexplained voices, objects flying off shelves, doors slamming, electrical appliances malfunctioning wildly, lights turning on and off. Classic aggressive poltergeist stuff.
Was this just their claim or was it verified?
It was verified. They called the police multiple times. Responding officers documented the strange occurrences. Some reported feeling an oppressive atmosphere in the house, hearing voices themselves, or witnessing objects move inexplicably. Several officers became so unnerved they reportedly refused to re-enter the home alone. It was causing genuine fear and distress, documented in official police logs.
Okay, intense, verified poltergeist activity. Where's the UAP connection?
Concurrent with this period of extreme activity inside the house, there were numerous reports from the family and neighbors of unexplained aerial phenomena outside, specifically over the nearby Oricon Marsh, a large wildlife refuge. Fast-moving silent lights, unusual aerial objects, standard UAP sighting reports, happening in the same specific location and time frame as the intense poltergeist events.
So the files link these two types of phenomena occurring simultaneously in the same spot.
They document the correlation. It raises that uncomfortable question. Are these phenomena related? Is there some underlying mechanism or source that can manifest as both structured aerial craft and localized, seemingly paranormal disruptions like poltergeist activity? The files don't answer that, but they record the overlap.
Is there anything else in the report that ties it together? Any specific object or event?
Yes, and this is the strangest detail of all. The family traced the beginning of the intense poltergeist activity to the arrival of one specific item in their home. A secondhand bunk bed they had purchased.
A haunted bunk bed. Seriously.
That's what the record implies. The activity seems centered around it. And the resolution is just as bizarre. All the phenomena, the voices, the moving objects, the electrical issues, presumably the fear and oppression stopped completely, instantly, and permanently, only after the family removed the bunk bed from the house and burned it.
They burned the bed and everything stopped.
Yeah.
Including the UAP sightings nearby.
The report suggests the cessation of the poltergeist activity was immediate after the bed was destroyed. Whether the UAP sightings in the area also stopped concurrently isn't always clear in these types of blended reports, but the link between the physical object, the bed, the localized poltergeist effects, which often involve electromagnetic disturbances, and the nearby aerial sightings is documented. It remains a deeply weird, unresolved data point hinting at connections we don't understand at all.
Okay, that's out there. Let's maybe ground ourselves with one more case emphasizing physical traces, perhaps somewhere remote.
Good idea. Let's look at the Araraquara River encounter in Colombia, 1974. Deep in the Amazon jungle, extremely isolated.
Who witnessed this?
Missionaries stationed at a remote outpost along the river. They reported seeing a metallic, disc-shaped object, maybe 30 feet in diameter, hovering low over the river near their location. Silent, structured, classic disc.
Did it interact with them or the environment?
Yes. They reported it projected a wide, bright beam of light downwards towards the riverbank and their outpost. Associated with this light beam was an intense wave of heat, so intense it forced the missionaries to drop to the ground for cover, feeling like they were being burned.
The heat ray effect.
Yeah.
And any EMI, even out there.
Even out there. Their small diesel generator, providing power to the outpost, sputtered and died during the event. Their radios also went dead. Clear instance of the EMI effect, impacting rudimentary technology far from any city or major power grid.
What happened after? Did they find traces?
The object eventually retracted the beam and flew away silently. Later investigation, reportedly including the Colombian Air Force, examined the site. They found areas of vegetation near the riverbank where the light beam was focused that were scorched, brittle, and damaged, consistent with exposure to high heat. They also noted, significantly, no trace of entry or exit in the soft ground or river mud, suggesting the heat was applied from above while hovering, not from a landing.
So remote location, missionary witnesses, classic disc, heat beam effect, localized EMI disabling power and radio, and physical scorch marks left behind. It ticks a lot of boxes we've seen elsewhere.
Exactly. It shows the phenomenon isn't restricted to populated areas or military zones. It occurs globally, in deep isolation, and demonstrates the same core characteristics: silent operation, powerful energy projection, heat light, electromagnetic interference, and the ability to leave physical traces on the environment.
Looking back across all these cases, from Levelland stalled trucks in 57 to Colombian jungle heat rays in 74, from astronaut photos in 66 to police chases in 66, from radar tracks over Texas in 08 to alleged recoveries in 65. What's the thread that ties all this documented evidence together?
It's that word again, consistency. It's overwhelming when you see it laid out. Consistent descriptions of the objects themselves, silent, often metallic, capable of impossible speeds and maneuvers. Consistent physical effects, the electromagnetic interference is undeniable across decades and technologies. The heat effects, the physical ground traces.
And consistency in the official reaction to it.
Absolutely. That's almost the most telling pattern. Internally, the documents often show sophisticated tracking systems, radar, pilot, sensors working perfectly, detecting and recording a genuine anomaly that defies conventional explanation. The systems aren't failing, they're accurately reporting the impossible.
But then the public explanation
Is often denial, debunking, or a mundane explanation whether. Misidentification that is frequently contradicted by the details within the government's own internal investigation files. That persistent gap between the internal reality documented in the files and the external narrative presented to the public is maybe the biggest takeaway.
So what does this all mean then? We've looked at the Black Vault's treasure trove. What's the bottom line from these official records?
The bottom line is that the documents force you to separate the evidence from the explanation. The evidence, meticulously recorded by trained personnel using sophisticated systems, points unequivocally to the recurring presence of objects exhibiting characteristics that are not supposed to be possible under our current understanding of physics and aerodynamics.
The systems worked. The pilots followed protocol. The radar tracked targets. The analysts wrote reports. It was the phenomenon itself that refused to fit the known categories.
Precisely. The achievement of archives like the Black Vault is holding up that mirror, showing us the official record, warts and all, forcing a reckoning with the fact that, according to their own files, governments worldwide have been documenting encounters with extraordinary technology for decades. They logged events that were, by any objective measure, real and inexplicable.
Real objects, intelligently controlled, violating known physics, capable of interacting with our technology, sometimes disabling it, from car engines right up to nuclear-based communications. That's what the signed, dated, declassified papers actually say.
That is what the record shows, stripped of speculation.
We've journeyed through decades of this documented evidence, photos validated by labs, film analyzed by physicists, radar tracks confirmed by supervisors, recovery memos filed away, astronaut sightings logged, police chases recorded, engine failures investigated. The records are there. They're verifiable. They show remarkable consistency across time and space. But maybe the final question isn't just about the objects. Maybe it's about the silence surrounding them.
How so?
Well, if multiple governments across different political systems, different eras, different national interests, the US, Canada, Brazil, Romania, New Zealand, likely others, all internally documented encounters with this same inexplicable phenomenon. Yet publicly, none could offer a consistent, unified, truthful explanation. What does that collective, decades-long silence or deflection really tell us? What does it imply about the limits of our knowledge, or perhaps the control of that knowledge? And maybe the most chilling thought to leave you with: what happens next when the thing that defies our explanations also demonstrates the power to shut down the very systems we depend on for our safety and defense?